Today is your first day taking care of Township. This is a lovely place with thriving agriculture and farming. It even has its very own helicopter pad. And an ever-noisy railway station. Oh well, it's time to get to work.
Welcome back to Contact Manufacturing Incorporated. I'm Jert the caretaker, here to guide you around for today's tasks. It looks like you have a new factory alert. Click the icon at the left to view it. Oh no, a factory failure. One of your bakeries malfunctioned. You have to either renovate the facility or replace its obsolete equipment to fix it. Are you up for the task? Click OK to continue. Another notification, a new challenge. It looks like you've got a letter from Contact Manufacturing Incorporated's board. Don't worry, they are going to help you decide the best option for your bread manufacturing facility.
This is our bread factory. Contact Manufacturing Incorporated is considering two alternative investment proposals to fix this old factory. The first proposal calls for a major renovation of the company's manufacturing facility. The second involves replacing just a few obsolete pieces of equipment in the facility. The company will choose one project or the other this year, but it will not do both, with the firm's discount project cash flow at 15%. The cash flows associated with each project appear below.
Well then, if this is the projected cash flows, what should we do? How can we choose the best alternative for our bread factory?
The members of the board are here to provide you with the information you need in making the most efficient decision. To access their help on the case, click on the icon on the left. This case takes 4 steps to complete. Let's begin with step 1, the elements to consider.
To find the best alternative, we should consider these 4 elements: payback period, net present value, internal rate of return, and profitability index. There are different valuation methods in accepting or rejecting capital budgeting projects. While the net present value is the single best criterion to consider, since it is easy to calculate all of them, all 4 measures should be assessed for the company to determine the long-term economic and financial profitability of the investment. Each provide different types of information and contribute to the different important aspects in analyzing and choosing the best project.
I have an idea. Here's how. We need to calculate the payback period, net present value, internal rate of return, and profitability index of each year. And based on these criteria, we can indicate which project we can recommend for acceptance.
Precisely. The payback method is a method of evaluating a project by measuring the required number of years it will take to recover the initial investment from its operating cash flows. The payback period is considered to be the year prior to full recovery plus a fraction equal to the shortfall at the end of that year, divided by the cash flow during the full recovery year. It indicates the liquidity and risk of the project. Thus, the shorter the payback period, the more it is desirable, and a longer payback could mean that the project is relatively illiquid. In this case, after comparing the two mutually exclusive projects, the computation shows that the payback period of the replacement of equipment in the facility is lower than renovating the whole manufacturing facility. Thus, we should replace the obsolete pieces of equipment in the bread factory.
Net present value is a method used in capital budgeting to analyze the profitability of a project. It is the present value of future net cash flows discounted at the cost of capital. Because the NPV is a direct measure that tells us how much a project contributes to shareholders' wealth, it is the best criterion to use in making investment decisions. In general, the larger the NPV, the more value the project adds, consequently leading to a higher stock price. The table projected shows the corresponding net present values of the replace and renovate alternatives. In this criteria, it shows that renovating the facility has a higher NPV than replacing its obsolete equipment. As these two projects are mutually exclusive, it is recommended for the bread factory to renovate its whole facility.
A project's internal rate of return indicates the annual rate of growth it is expected to generate. It is the discount rate that forces the present value of the inflows to equal the cost, which is equivalent to forcing the net present value to equal zero. It contains valuable information about a project's safety margin, in which projects with high internal rate of returns indicate a larger margin of error. With regards to two mutually exclusive projects, whichever has a higher internal rate of return between the two is a better choice. The computation for the table shows that the internal rate of returns of both projects exceed the assumed 15% cost of capital. Moreover, replacing obsolete equipment has a higher internal rate of return than renovating the whole facility. As such, the recommendation is to accept the proposal to replace the obsolete pieces of equipment in the facility.
Lastly, the profitability index describes an index that represents the relationship between the costs and benefits of a proposed project, measuring profitability relative to the cost. It gives an indication of the project's risk, as high PI could mean that cash flows could fall quite a bit and the project would still be profitable. A project's attractiveness is measured on whether or not its PI is greater than 1.0. However, in the case of two mutually exclusive projects, the project earning the higher PI is deemed to be more profitable. As observed from the data on the table, computations show that the PI of the replacement option is greater than that of the option to renovate. It means that the project generates $1.121 for every $1 invested. Hence, the proposal to replace the obsolete pieces of equipment in the facility is recommended.
Now that we are done calculating the four elements, we found out that there are conflicting recommendations based on the criteria used. Why is this occurring?
There are conflicting recommendations in the various criteria for evaluation. Specifically, the result from the net present value criteria is different from that of all the others. With net present value and payback period, the latter is measured that considers recovery time and as such is less for projects with large inflows in the beginning of the period than those with constant streams. Additionally, net present value is a dollar amount measure concerned with the added values of the projects to the company's wealth, whereas the payback period is a time measure which fails to take into account the time value of money nor the cash flows after the payback period in its evaluation. In the case of net present value and internal rate of return, the conflict stems from the project's nature and size. The nature of the projects is mutually exclusive, so in comparing which is the better option, size plays a difference as internal rate of return is more likely to be a greater for smaller projects. Based on the criteria of net present value and profitability index, the conflict is all because of the two mutually exclusive projects having different investment amounts. Net present value as an absolute amount may be greater for large projects, while the profitability index as a ratio is greater for smaller ones.
Now we are ready for the second step of our analysis. You can press X to close this section and proceed to the next step.
Now that we examine NPV profiles of the two projects to determine the relationship, an NPV profile is a graph of a project's net present value corresponding to different values of discount rates. It is useful in capital budgeting analysis because it tells the investing company about the cost of capital at which both of the mutually exclusive projects are equally good. Here is the chart of the NPV profiles of these projects. We are labeling the intersection points on the X and Y axis and the crossover point. We label the y-intercepts, which are NPV of the projects when the discount rate is 0. The x-intercepts, on the other hand, represents the IRR. The point where the two lines meet is the crossover point, or the cost of capital at which the net present values of two projects are equal. Projects with a positive NPV profile are considered the ones which maximize the NPV and are the ones selected for investment. In the case of mutually exclusive projects, the discount rate is the deciding factor.
For example, if we assume that the weighted average cost of capital, or WACC, is at 15%, by looking at the chart of NPV profiles, the curve for the renovation project is located way above that of the replacement. As such, at this point, where the WACC is lesser than the crossover point, the net present value of the project to renovate is higher. Therefore, we recommend that the company accept the proposal to renovate the entire manufacturing facility as it adds more value to the shareholders' wealth.
In the case where the WACC is 25%, which is higher than the crossover rate, there is no conflict between the recommendations based on the NPV and IRR. Looking at the chart of NPV profiles, at a WACC of 25%, the replace curve is now located above the renovate curve, indicating a higher net present value. Additionally, we see in the chart that the IRR of the project to replace is greater than that of renovate, as indicated by the intersection points of the curves in the x-axis. With both NPV and IRR being higher than the other, we recommend the acceptance of the proposal to replace the obsolete pieces of equipment in the facility.
We've made it this far! We're almost done. Just 2 more steps to go and we'll be finished with this case.
As a summary of everything we've learned so far, the different criteria used to analyze the data provided for both project proposals best varying favorability on either. This is because each criteria weighs the costs and benefits of the proposals with different lights and point of view. To be specific, the criteria of NPV favors accepting the proposal to renovate the manufacturing facility as it adds more value to the shareholders' wealth. The rest of the criteria, payback period, internal rate of return, and profitability index, generally supports the acceptance of the project proposal to replace the obsolete pieces of equipment in the facility, as it shows a shorter payback period, has the higher IRR above the hurdle rate, and is more attractive project. In comparison with the renovate project, the potential profitability is lower but it is considerably more liquid and has a higher margin of error. With replace project, it has indeed the more desirable profitability outcome, but due to its size is more illiquid with a lower safety margin. And if considering the availability of finance, if finance is limited, then a more appropriate measure than NPV would be profitability index, in which the recommended project would be to replace the equipment in the bread factory.
Finally, for our recommendation, Contact Manufacturing Incorporated should accept the proposal of renovating the company's manufacturing facility. This is based on the computation of net present value criteria. It is best for the company to use NPV in deciding which project to accept, since it employs a more realistic investment rate assumption and is a better indicator of profitability and shareholders' wealth. Based on the NPV calculation of the 2 projects, as well as the analysis with the NPV profile chart, renovating the facility will result in a larger NPV of $1,056,465.29 compared to replacing obsolete equipment of $289,334.61, assuming that the firm's discount rate remains to be 15%. Thus, renovating will be more profitable to the company and will add more value to its shareholders' wealth. Nonetheless, the firm also take into mind the results of other criteria and use the information gathered to monitor the implementation of the project and prepare for any unexpected deviations from the forecast caused by outside elements.
Good job, everyone! We're almost ready to fix our bakery. Go to the Build menu, choose Factories, and decide whether you want to replace or renovate the factory. Congratulations! Your bakery renovation is now in progress. Wise choice for choosing to renovate the manufacturing facility. By using NPV as your chosen indicator, you get to see a more realistic investment rate assumption and have a better indicator of profitability and shareholders' wealth. Because of renovating your factory, your company can be more profitable and you can add more value to your shareholders' wealth. That's it for today's case. See you tomorrow for more challenges.